This is a great example. We have what I would call a father figure. Okay? Your father or your mother sets rules for you to live by, correct? You must go to bed at such a time, you must eat your vegetables, you mustn't spend too much time on the computer, whatever it is. Let's say you have the father. Okay? I'm going to use the term father. He's kind of a disciplinarian, right? Your father or your mother. Your mother could also be your father or your grandmother. Exactly. Now, when you live under your father's roof in this house, okay, you got to live by his or her rules, correct? When you're young, right? You're 5 years old, you're 6 years old. Your father makes the decisions. Why does your father make the decision? Because your father knows best. And why does your father know best? Because he's older, he has the experience, right? So there's certain laws that you live under your father's roof. For example, you can't stay up past 11 o'clock on a school night, etc., etc. Okay? Now, your father does this to protect you because you don't know enough on your own. You don't have as much experience. Okay? And there's certain rules that we must follow in order to have a wonderful, successful life, correct? Okay, so at some point, you reach a certain age, and you decide to move out. Okay, and you want to live into your own house. However grand or small, or maybe it's an apartment or whatever it is. At some point, you're going to go over. You're going to cross that line. And then you're going to become your own father. Okay? Or you actually become a father because you have a wife and you have children, and then you take on that role of your father. Okay? Now, the only way that you can do this is when you understand that I must create an income to pay for my rent, to pay for my food. Okay? You then learn at some point, how do you buy food? How do you pay your phone bill? How do you do your banking, right? So after experience and watching and learning, you learn to do all of these things on your own, and suddenly you are the master of your own domain, and you set your own rules. And then you have children and you become a father, right? So what happens here is that you end up growing up, correct? You grow up and it's a natural thing for you to become the master of your own domain, called your father. Okay. You begin to understand the laws of living. That's how you can function. Your father already had that law. Maybe it takes you 21 years. It's called the age of consent in the West, is roughly 19 to 21, where you become legal all over. Now this is no different than living under the Father called God, or the Creator. Okay? God takes care of you, just as a father does. And you must live under his, her, however you describe it, identify it. His or her rules. Okay? Now, you don't always like what your mother or father tells you to do. In the same way that when you were young, you didn't like your father saying, you can't go out, this person's bad for you, and you cannot associate with them anymore, or there's going to be no bringing girls home, or etc., etc., which feels like it's very limiting. So therefore, you don't have the experiences that you want or the outcomes you have, because you're not in control. Okay? You don't know how to make a proper decision because you don't know all the laws. Okay? So meanwhile, life gives you what life gives you up until today because you don't realize that perhaps nothing will work in the E period, so I have to accept disruption. I have to accept failure. Okay? Or F period, it seems like I can't do any wrong in the F period. I get all of this goodness, and I don't understand why. I don't understand why I have pain and suffering, and I don't understand why I have happiness and joy. Okay? So what happens is that now you learn metaphysics, you learn universal laws, you learn numerology, astrology, you learn how to be intuitive, and now you begin to understand how the whole world and the whole universe and the whole cycle of life flows and how it works. So when you do that, you can now make better decisions. Okay? Better choices, better outcomes, according to what you want. Not what your father wants, not what your mother wants, because you've proven to them And you decide that you're going to be your own father. Does this make sense? Okay. So you learn to grow up physically, and then you learn to grow up spiritually as well. At any time, you can go back. So let's say you're 21. At any time, if you fall into trouble or hardship, your mother will take you in, correct? Your father will take you in, correct? Your grandmother will take you in as long as she's alive. You could be 40 years old and totally fall flat on your face and fail. And your mother and father will take you in, right? Whether it's to actually house you, clothe you, and feed you, or they will give you advice, take you under the wing, correct? It's always there for you, right? So spiritually as well. When you come to understand more of the laws, the universal laws, okay, you can make your better decisions and you spiritually mature or you grow up. The Father is always there for you. Always there. Maybe you say a prayer. Okay? Sometimes your prayers are answered, and maybe we know why they are or they are not answered. But that's the whole exercise of Time Code 101, 102, and 103, is to show you how you can make a better decision, because now you know some of the basic laws for living. Okay?